Today, I'm going to talk about my childhood and something kind of crazy that happened to me. That actually makes me anxious even thinking about talking about it. When I was a teenager, I thought psychology was so boring. I didn't even know that it could be easier. It wasn't until I started changing my mind that I started understanding what freedom was. When I was a little kid, I was probably a lot like other girls. You know, I was kind of cutesy, I was kind of soft. So I lived in this like sweet, peaceful little hippie town in Canada. Nothing bad ever happens there. And then, bam, I was about 1.5 or 2. My mom was driving my brother to kindergarten, and I was in the back seat in a car seat. And we stopped to pick up my brother's friend. And my brother's was such a sweetheart, so he was in the back seat so that his friend could ride up front. His friend is walking towards the car and stops to tie his shoelace. And at that moment, the front passenger seat explodes. If any of that had been different, if that had been 1 second off, if my brother hadn't been giving his friend the front seat or his friend hadn't stopped, one of us would have, they would have lost their legs or been blown up. So that was the first bombing. And after that, it happened 4 more times. Somebody had targeted us and they blew up our part of the side of our house, our shed, our car again. This happened over a period of 1.5 years. So basically my family just lived in fear because we had no idea if it was going to happen again. We had no idea why it was happening. It's like all over the newspapers. The police did everything they could, but we never got an explanation for it. So what's interesting about this is that going through that as a little girl, I was super vulnerable. Somewhere along the way, my brain came to the conclusion that being a vulnerable little girl was not a good idea. So when I was 4, I made my parents shave my head. And from then on, I kind of acted like a boy. Somehow my brain thought that that was safer. And if I was a boy, I'd be like my brother, and, you know, boys are tougher. And I had all these random thoughts about that. So basically, I shut down all of the things about myself that were feminine or soft or vulnerable. They were too scary. I literally became this like weird daredevil where I was always doing things that were super hectic and intense, jumping off cliffs and skydiving and riding motorcycles. So I got so used to this mask of pretending I was tough that I literally couldn't feel fear. So I had no way of knowing what was too far. Like I had no measure for safety. My whole personality structure was based around that. So to change that was really hard because my mind developed that to keep me safe from literally getting blown up by a bomb. So it's kind of hard to convince your mind to change that because it's just... So for me, it wasn't until I could reach out for help and notice that pattern. You know, other people actually had to point that out to me. I didn't notice that on my own. I didn't connect the dots because I had no perspective because it was in my own head. I had no idea that I was basically living in fear all the time. So now that I've sort of been able to figure that out and slow down and, you know, find that quiet place inside me where I know I'm safe, all those behavior patterns, I don't need them anymore. And you know, I still love doing kind of daredevil things like riding a motorcycle, and I love adventure and I love the edge. But now it's like I can enjoy those things because I'm also aware of safety and I'm also aware of what I'm experiencing and how far is too far. I can still feel the impact of that early experience. Like I still get a bit of a... Now I see it as this amazing opportunity of growth. So I probably wouldn't have been so fascinated with how the mind works and and why people do what they do if I hadn't gone through that. And that is what basically led to my whole career, which I love. And even if we haven't been through something that's that life or death, to a kid, our worlds are so small. So, our parents getting divorced can feel like a bomb exploding. A parent that yells at us a lot or gets annoyed at us can feel like it's the end of the world. Getting lost for 5 minutes can feel like we're totally abandoned. Whatever you've been through in your childhood, whatever you've been through in your life, it's going to create patterns in your mind. Reaching out for help and having someone to connect the dots for us and to notice things for us is such a good idea, because then we can be free to learn from the experience. It doesn't have to keep us stuck anymore. Next up, I talk to my great friend Joel.
It's almost like there's so much noise in your head. You're just like, what?
Thanks for watching.